Today we're going to talk about smelling salts. I've been seeing a lot of videos recently on YouTube and TikTok of people smelling salts and having really interesting reactions. So I thought, let me make a really quick video on it just so we can learn about it. So let's get into it. So what are smelling salts? Well, smelling salts, I guess, is a respiratory stimulant. Respiratory, we know, meaning breathing. Stimulant, meaning it wakes you up. Think about caffeine. This stimulant is used to wake someone up after losing consciousness or to arouse their consciousness. Now, I don't know how often it's used now. I know back in the day, like the Victorian era, they used to do it a lot. But from what I understand, this is what their main use is. So this is the molecule in question. It's an ammonium carbonate. It's a mixture of things. We'll talk about that in a second. And this ammonia here is the culprit as far as that pungent odor that comes from them. So as you can see here, this is used by athletes in a lot of sports to arouse consciousness, to wake them up a little bit, to get them pumped up to do whatever they need to do. They've been used since the Roman Empire, and they gained popularity in the Victorian era. So back in the Victorian era, women used to faint a lot. Now, I looked this up because I think in some cases smelling salts were used. In other cases, they didn't need to be used, and here's why. So from the article I read, there's not a definite answer. I think back in the day, as far as the culture was concerned, this was considered to be an appropriate response to a strong emotion. I think they called it swooning, so you just faint. So you weren't really actually fainting, it was kind of just an act. There are theories saying that the tightness of the corsets that women would wear could contribute to fainting, which I agree with. And the heavy lead and arsenic in makeup could have led to fainting, which I think could be a possibility as well. A lot of doctors, from what I understand in this time, had this stuff. So you see this guy right here is kind of past us, who's trying to wake him up. Now the thing about this stuff is that if you ever smelled ammonia, you know what I'm talking about. It's not a fun scent. It's very sharp and it smells very terrible. So this stuff releases ammonia in the air. So let's talk about how this actually works. So how do they work? Well, the package is broken or snapped. So if we zoom in here, it's ammonia inhalant, and you crush once there so you can snap it or crush it, and then ammonia is released into the air. As I just mentioned, the mixture releases ammonia gas, and the gas triggers what's called an inhalation reflex. So think about when you go to the doctor and they kind of use that hammer to hit your knee and your knee pops up. That's a reflex. So this is what it triggers. It triggers this reflex to make you inhale. So how does that work? Well, in our nose, we have this thing called the nasal mucosa, this really absorbent area. Part of this is where we get smell and all sorts of interesting things. This is also the area that absorbs things like drugs. So if you have a nasal spray or something like that, a lot of that works because it gets absorbed relatively quickly. So when these mucous membranes, this nasal mucosa, gets irritated, it irritates the nose and the lungs, and it just wakes you up. These areas are very sensitive. So, you can think about your life when you've smelled a very pungent odor, it's very shocking if you smell something very pleasant. So this area is full of all kinds of action that allows you to perceive your environment. If you are too close to this releasing of gas, you can burn your nasal and oral mucosa. From the research I did, you want to do 4 to 6 inches away. I don't think there's a good reason to smell this stuff. I'm going to post a couple funny videos of people smelling salts so you can kind of have an idea of how terrible they smell. But with all that being said, let's go to the summary and review what we learned today. So we spoke about how smelling salts are respiratory stimulants that are used to wake someone up after they lose consciousness. They were big in the Roman Empire and got bigger in the Victorian era, and they contain ammonium carbonate, which releases ammonia into the air as a gas. Then we talked about how it works. You break or snap the package, it releases ammonia gas, it triggers an inhalation reflex, which wakes you up due to it irritating the mucous membranes in the nose and the lungs. So that's all I got. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about these very interesting products. Like I said, I'm going to post a couple of videos in the description, so please watch those. I think they're really interesting. If you've never smelled smelling salts, you kind of get an idea of how potent they are. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another video.